All right, so now we get to introduce a very special guest. Right?
I'm really excited.
I met this guy, and I still haven't recovered.
Well, I mean,
that's true.
Really excited.
That's true. Marco Borges is I'm going to call you a proselytizer. Okay?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Can anybody tell me what a proselytizer is? Somebody, you're a college student. Yes? Who wants to convert someone.
Yeah.
Okay? Who believes in something and who preaches.
He's also a New York Times bestselling author, passionate advocate of a plant-based eating, exercise physiologist, advocate, environmentalist. He's the founder of 22 Days Nutrition, and he also helps to get Beyonce and her husband, I think you guys might know who he is, they're nutritionists and ready for when they go out on tour and when they're making lifestyle changes.
Marco thinks that eating plants is not just good for you, but is good for the planet, and he'll talk to you about that. As I say, he's a storyteller. He's pretty amazing.
Absolutely. He's been on everything you've probably seen on the Today Show, Good Morning America, and if you're like myself, you follow him on Instagram.
So, give it up for Marco Borges.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, man.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Appreciate that.
All right.
What a kind introduction. Thank you. I appreciate that. Good morning. How's everyone doing today? How many of you in the room have heard of the green print? Anyone? Oh, this is going to be fun. Oh, my kids naturally raise their hand in the back. Our boys are back there with Isaiah. So it's Marco, Matteo, Maximo, and Mila, and they're not on spring break. They're homeschooled, so they're joining us today. They're future GW alum. All right. So just a few of you. So this is going to be fun. I was going to ask how many of you came for Beyonce and Jay-Z concert tickets for life, if you had heard of the green print. But I guess only one person. Two people in the room. Okay, fantastic. So when I started talking to Frank about the opportunity to be able to come here and share the story of the green print with you, feel free to run around because I always have the urge to run. And I'll walk around the stage a lot. So the idea came that we would come and share a story about the green print. But first, we have to start with what the green print is, right? So our green print is the positive impact we can have on the world through through what we're eating, through plant-based meals. So what kind of an impact can we make by consuming more plant-based meals? Not going 100% plant-based per se, but feeling more inclusive about it. There's no right or wrong way to do this. It's about getting people to understand that the more plants we eat, the better off we're going to be, the better the planet is going to be. But before I can get into the green print, I have to take a step back so you can really understand the big picture. This is me at 6. And this is my grandmother when she migrated from Cuba to Miami. My grandmother was, Mima, as we knew her, was an incredible human being. Came to the United States as a single parent with my mother and her son, my uncle, Pablo. Mima she was a riot. She taught us all the bad Spanish words. So this is why my first language is Spanish and why I am very proficient in all the bad words, even the most complex ones. So Mima was a lot of fun. She would run us around a little neighborhood in Miami. When all the Cubans migrated to Miami, they all went to the same neighborhood, and they eventually coined it Little Havana. And Little Havana was a blast. Every day was an adventure out in the street. We used to chase down the ice cream trucks. We used to run, all day long. We never went inside. We didn't take public transportation. She didn't drive. So we were always walking around town. But I remember as a kid that it wasn't so much where we were going, but no matter what, she almost always had to stop. And she always carried a pocketbook under her arm. She never used a purse. I was creating this, I started to think about it. She never used a purse. She always had a pocketbook under her arm, and she would open it, and she would say, "Espera un momentico." She would open it, and she'd put a little white pill under her tongue. That little white pill was nitroglycerin. And for those of you that don't know, nitroglycerin is a vasodilator. What it does is it opens up the blood vessels so that you could breathe a little bit easier, so stuff can move around a little bit easier. This is kind of crazy because my grandmother was almost 50. I'm almost 50. and my grandmother was on medication for the rest of her life, and she had been for many years. Who knows how long? This is just when I noticed it. I was 6 years old. So I was thinking to myself, something's not right here. I mean, I loved my grandmother. This is me all the time. From the time I was born, there was one of me at 10. She was holding me, but I thought it was kind of embarrassing at 10 for someone to be carrying you, so I decided to show you this one instead. But I love my grandmother so much. She was such an amazing human. She was a riot. I mean, she was the toughest woman you could ever meet. She would, true and funny story, anyone looked at her wrong because she was with my brother and I, and she would immediately get very defensive. And we lived in a neighborhood that wasn't the safest neighborhood. And if she ever saw someone that was threatening, she'd be like, "Get!" And she'd pull out her pocketbook and put her hand inside her pocketbook like she had a gun or something inside her pocketbook. I'd be like, "What are you doing?" She's like, "I'm scaring them off. They think I have a gun in here." I'm like, "Your pocketbook is like this big." She's like, "Haven't you seen the movies? They have those little guns." And I'm like, but people would look at her like she was crazy and be like, "All right, woman." And they'd walk away. So she was a ton of fun, but immediately I knew at a very young age that she needed help. And she needed help because she was taking all these medications. So at the age of 6, an idea came to my mind. She needs help. And because she's not getting the help she needs, I am going to provide that help. I am going to be that conduit. I'm going to grow up and I'm going to become a doctor. Easy, right? She won't have to take any more medications and all our problems will be solved because I want Mima to live a very, very long life. So I started thinking, maybe it's exercise, maybe it's what we're eating, maybe it's, getting more rest, more recovery. And then something happened my last semester of biology. I realized while doing my pre-med work, I was spending a lot of hours in hospitals, and I realized that our system is deeply flawed because we're always reacting, right? It's a super reactive system. It's not proactive in nature. We wait for you to get sick, and then we treat your symptoms. That's crazy. How is that possible? So then I thought to myself, there's a big problem here. There's a really big problem here. So I decided that medicine might not be the perfect case. It might not be the way that I want to go. So I pivoted, and I picked up a degree in exercise physiology along with my biology degree. And I decided that I wouldn't go to med school. By the way, my mission remained the same, right? It was the same exact mission. I wanted to make my family healthier, and more importantly, I wanted to keep them healthy. But I was going to go about it a different way. It was going to be more about prevention, because that is not a number that I made up, right? 4 billion prescriptions were filled in the US last year alone. So think about that. Think about all the people that are in this room. Look to your left and look to your right. That's the equivalent of 12 prescriptions for every man, woman, and child. Or should I say woman, man, and child, because women get prescribed more medications than men. That, to me, does not sound like a solution. Wait, as if that wasn't bad enough. The Mayo Clinic reports that 7 out of 10 people are taking prescription drugs. So statistically, there's a lot of purses or backpacks or pockets full of drugs in this room. That, to me, is not the answer. It's not the solution. It really isn't the solution. 4 prescriptions on average. And the reality is, these prescriptions, they're doing what? Does anyone know what they're doing? Who said that? What? We're treating symptoms. We're never getting to the root cause. We're never getting to the underlying issue. All we're doing is treating symptoms. Now, I don't know about you, but I, myself, am not a reactive person. I am a proactive person. So I decided that something had to be done. And I've got a friend here from PCRM, and this is Dr. Neil Barnard from down the street. Wonderful guy, created PCRM, Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. And he says it best. He says, today, we have a pill for every ill. Just a couple of days ago, I heard him say something that made me giggle. He said that medicine today is like the new iPhone. We have an app for that, which is crazy, right? So as I started to really dig into what we could be doing differently, I realized that heart disease Let's just look at heart disease. Let's not look at diabetes, dementia, stroke, Alzheimer's, cancer. Let's just take a look at heart disease. It's a $1 billion a day business. We're at almost $500 billion a year just treating heart disease. When we know that it's completely preventable. We know this, right? So 1 in 3 adults, again, look around this room, look to your left and your right. 1 in 3 adults have some form of cardiovascular disease. This is unacceptable. And to make matters worse, the CDC already says, who is super conservative, that 80% of this could be prevented. Now, if that's not cause for alarm, I don't know what is. So that got me really thinking, okay, what can we do? So as I mentioned, I picked up a degree in exercise physiology, but I quickly realized that it wasn't that people weren't exercising enough. How many of us have seen people go to the gym for a year, 2 years, 3 years, and their bodies remain exactly the same? Okay, I'm not the only one, thank God. And that's what happens, right? Because we've created really wonderful habits around what we do with our friends to catch up for fun by exercising. But we haven't created such good habits with respect to what we're putting into our bodies. And more importantly, where it's coming from. So I realized that we needed to focus more on what we're eating than what we were doing for exercise. And while I was doing the research, I came across dozens upon dozens upon dozens of studies that showed that a plant-based diet, now I grew up in a Cuban household eating Cuban food, but I was genetically gifted at a young age, so I wasn't heavy. I wasn't overweight. I was, to be quite honest, I've been 152 pounds for the last 20 some odd years since I was in my teens. So it wasn't a matter of weight, but I realized that my grandmother used to tell me that heart disease ran in our family. Now remember, this is my same grandmother that, when she was my age, was already taking medications for life. And she couldn't do anything about it because I was young and naive and didn't realize that it was hereditary. Was the disease really hereditary? Or was it the habits that were hereditary? Right? She was eating what her parents were eating. Right, Isaiah? Exactly. And her parents were eating what their parents were eating. So it wasn't so much that we were handed down bad genes, we were handed down bad habits, right? And those habits were causing a negative gene expression. So when I realized that we actually could do something about this, I could not learn enough. My background was in biology, so I'm wired as a researcher. And the more I read, the more I wanted to read. And the more I read, the more I realized that the answers were right in front of us. They were so simple that it was like, your car stops in the middle of the road, and you get out, and you open the hood, and you start digging around. You don't realize, and what you should have done is looked at your gas meter, and you would have realized that the first thing you could have done was to put gas in the car, right? Like, we're looking at so many ways. Let's grab veins from our leg. Let's cut our chest open. Let's replace some stuff. We got this. Let's take, pieces of pig and put it in. Maybe we should just think differently about what we're putting into our bodies. So I realized that a plant-based diet was not only the answer, it was the solution. But then I also realized that this same plant-based diet was also the same kind of diet that I was reading could reduce your risk of heart disease. Who would have thought? Oh my God, it almost makes sense. But wait, there's more. And for an additional $19.95, this diet can also reduce your risk of stroke and dementia and Alzheimer's, and the list goes on and on. Diabetes and obesity. Now, people today are very sensitive about the word obesity. And they're so sensitive to the point where no one wants to talk about it, because it can be perceived as body shaming. It can be perceived as something that's negative. I am a realist. I love everyone. I love life so much that I want everyone to love life as much as I do. I love being alive, and there's nothing more than I love than to wake up every single day knowing that I get to do it one more time. I want everyone to wake up with that same feeling. So when I see obesity, I don't think you're a bum, you're lazy. I think there's something wrong with the habits. Let's fix them. Why? Because obesity is the first symptom that manifests itself outside the body. And we never stop to think about that. Never stop to think about that. So not only can a plant-based diet help reduce your risk of heart disease, actually can reverse heart disease. And doctors Dean Ornish and Esselstyn have proved it. It can reduce your risk of cancer, diabetes, dementia, Alzheimer's, a lot of the age-related diseases. So I thought to myself, okay, I am in. You can't know something and not do it, right? Like, if you know better, you have to do better, or you should. But immediately after I adopted a plant-based diet, I realized that it was also the single greatest thing that I could do to lessen, to reduce my impact on the environment. Can you imagine that animal agriculture makes up 18% of the calories, yet it utilizes more than 83% of the farmland? I'm not making any of these up. This is why I decided to put these slides up with the info so that you could see them, right? Takes up 30% of the Earth's surface. But wait, it gets better. 80% of our land is used to raise crops to feed to animals. By the way, we're feeding animals food they should not be eating, right? Cows are ruminants, right? What are cows supposed to be eating? Grass. That's wonderful. I'm glad that everyone knew that answer. What are we feeding them? Genetically modified corn, right? Genetically modified soy. Does that make sense? It's radical. I remember that when I told my family that I had adopted a plant-based diet, I've always been a little bit different. And my mom is the absolute greatest in the world. She is my greatest cheerleader and also my, at times, my greatest critic, or almost always, right? Because she wants me to always be the best. And I remember the day I told my mom that I was going plant-based, she says, "Tú sí eres radical. Oh, you're so radical. Everything for you is an extreme. You know, as a young kid, you decided you wouldn't drink, and I've never taken a sip of alcohol. I've never had any drugs. I've never smoked because I'm just wired that way, right? So when I told her I was going to go plant-based, she says, okay, you've gone too far. But it's crazy because almost everyone that you speak to at first says to you, but don't you think that's a bit radical? Yet when we say to someone, I have a friend that's a cardiologist that says to me, I'll tell patients that I've got to cut them open and replace some valves in their heart, and they're like, okay. And then I'll tell that same patient, I want you to go on a plant-based diet, and they go, oh, no way, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing. I've got to draw the line somewhere. You could cut me open, but I am definitely not going to stop eating pig. Okay? So I realized that the answers are right in front of us, and it just took a little bit of a shift in mindset, having a little bit more of an open mind to be able to help people move in the right direction. And this one really is going to get you, because livestock is the #1 contributor to greenhouse gases on the planet. More than planes, trains, automobiles, and boats combined. More than all transportation combined. Right? I sat in yesterday in your panel, and we were, I believe it was Jeff, right? That was talking about methane and us getting to that point where there's no turning back, right? So how many of you consider yourself environmentalists? How many of you are concerned with the environment in this room? Maximo, you're not concerned with it? Oh, okay. I am as well. And while we may not have all the answers today, I think that the risk is far too great for us to ignore. We've got to do everything possible today to do our best to make this planet a better place and to be better stewards of what we've been given for the future generations to come. Right, Maximo? So I thought, this is no longer an opportunity for me to live a healthier life. It's no longer about it being an opportunity for me to share this wonderful lifestyle with my family. It's no longer an opportunity to empower my friends and my community. For me, it became a social responsibility to share it with as many people as possible. Because I truly believe that it isn't that people don't care, it's that they don't know. So I made it my life's work to share this message with as many people as possible. Now, this guy here is like a brother to me. His name is Raymond Garcia. He published my first book, published my second book, published my third book, and published my fourth book. So we go way back. And when he acquired my first book, he looked like this. Yet, you'll probably get the sense that I am this crazy guy that's going to want you to go 100% plant-based tomorrow, jump into the deep end of the pool. But I'm really not. I'm more of the Chinese torture guy. I will drop 1 drop of water on your head every single day for the rest of your life. And that's what I did to him. And then this happened. And Raymond lost about 80 pounds in a little less than 4 months. And he did it because he adopted a plant-based diet. But what happened was, this true story, by the way, true story. So he calls me, he says, oh my God, I've got an idea for your next book. And I said, what's that? He goes, Beyonce just had her baby. She looks phenomenal. We're going to do a baby belly book. And I was like, not feeling that. I have an idea for the book, and I'm actually working on it already. I was going to bring it to you, and it's called The 22-Day Revolution. And it's about how people can rewire their habits. It takes 21 days to make or break a habit. So if you adopted a healthy habit over the course of 21 days, on the 22nd day, you'd be empowered with a new tool, right, to live a healthier life. And he's like, on plants? That's not going to sell. Well, not only did that book become the #1 New York Times bestselling book, it became the #1 book on Amazon across all books, across all genres. It stayed on the list for many, many weeks, and we did some really incredible things as a result of that book, but nothing more incredible than this, because he regained his life back. He woke up one day with chest pain and realized that he was doing something really wrong. And I won't bore you with the story, but he had to go visit a cardiologist. He walked out with a pocket full of prescriptions and a handful of pills that he would need to take for the rest of his life, because he was hypertensive too. He had prediabetes. He had extremely high levels of cholesterol. And he was told basically that he would take these medications. Professor of cardiology in Columbia told him this, right? He would take his medications for the rest of his life because this is what was the solution. And I said, please, don't take those scripts and fill them out. Don't take those pills. I promise you that if you try this for 22 days, your life will radically change. He listened, and this is him almost 4 months later. And I show you this because of all the work that I've ever done. Because he's so close to me, because we work together, because we're partners, I noticed that something happened. Whenever I started to have a conversation with someone about a plant-based diet, it was like the light went off. When they'd see this, they would say, WTF? How do I get that? I remember that he was speaking to one of his authors, a very well-known person in Hollywood, and he went in to sign the contract looking like this guy, and then he went back like this. And when he walked in the room, they were like, hey, what the, holy what the, wait a second. And her manager was standing next to her and says, what happened to you? And he goes, oh, I lost a little bit of weight. And he goes, no. stop that BS. But we've got kids in the room. No way. No way. You did not lose a little bit of weight. You cut your body in half. What the hell happened? And he says, well, I adopted a plant-based diet. Oh, forget it. I can't do that. No, but wait. What exactly is a plant-based diet? So I realized that even the most skeptical people, even the ones that were most adamant against anything remotely looking like a plant-based diet, that we got a lot of attention. So I knew that if I wanted to bring this message into a much broader audience, if I wanted to be able to share it with the world, I had to do something more. So there the idea of the Green Print Project came to life. I thought, what if I could create a tool that quantifies the impact, right? Because we love benefits. We love that before and after. What if I could create a tool that would quantify the benefits of a plant-based diet? But not just a plant-based diet, because there's no right or wrong way to do this, about just eating more plants. If you adopted one plant-based meal a day, if you decided to go meatless Mondays, what would happen? So I created this tool, basically, and you guys, you're welcome to go into the tool and see it. It's thegreenprintproject.com, thegreenprintproject.com. If you go in, you'll see that you can take a pledge to eat one plant-based meal a day, 2, 3, 4, 5 over a month, and you'll be able to see real time what the impact will be in savings of water, in savings of CO2 emissions. Then I shared it with my partners. So I failed to mention that Beyonce and Jay-Z are not only dear friends, they're truly family. They're my brother and sister. They're also my business partners. So I remember going to the house and saying, JP, I've got this really cool tool that we created. I want to share it with you guys. And they saw it and they're like, oh my God, this is mind-blowing. So how are we going to get it out to the world? And I'm like, well, I don't know. That's what I'm coming to you for. You guys are the genius marketers. And B said, okay, so I want to post this on social, and I want to challenge people to do this, but I want to attach something to it. So we attached free tickets for life to all Beyonce and Jay-Z concerts. One lucky winner on Earth Day, coming up soon, so you still have time, will win tickets for every single Beyonce and Jay-Z concert for the rest of their lives. Pretty cool, right? So this is the result of that. We dropped it, and this is, based on our pledges, how much water we have saved to date. 61 billion, actually this is carbon emissions, so 61 billion kilograms of carbon emissions will have been reduced with our pledges to date. 847 billion gallons of water, because we know how much water animal agriculture sucks up and drains from our system. But not only that, then B alone garnered 123 million views. That wasn't enough. Then her friends decided to join us. Jessica, Khaled, Kelly, and the list goes on, and I won't bore you with those stats, but you get the picture. Very, very quickly, within the first 24, 48 hours, we had over 200 million, just in a couple of days, we had empowered over 200 million people with a little bit of information, that first drop of water, right? But what was brilliant was that because we attached the tickets for life, media went crazy for it, right? Media wasn't going to write an article about Marco creating the green print. That's boring. But they were going to create an article about Beyonce wanting the world to go vegan because she was giving away tickets for life, because this is the largest giveaway in the history of music, right? So guess what happens? NBC invites us on, ABC, CBS, and I mean, the list goes on and on and on. So I'd love to think that they all ask me on because they love me, which is fine. But the reality is that they were interested in the story because of how we wrapped the story. So we're in a room full of storytellers. It's not just the subject of the story. It's how you package the story. And why I took a step back was to allow you to realize that it is not just something that you create in a vacuum. It is something that you create with amazing people around you, but it has to be authentic. right? This is something that started in me at a very young age. If you would have asked me at 6, as I mentioned, what I was going to be when I grew up, I would have told you a doctor. And while my mission has remained the same, the process slightly changed. I mean, the list goes on and on, right? So, Frank asked me to leave young entrepreneurs with perhaps a little advice for their future. And you think of, this guy looks like he's having a lot of fun. By the way, I'm having the time of my life. I literally every day wake up, jump out of bed. I have to pinch myself because I have the world's greatest wife, Marilyn, sitting in the front, who also happens to be my best friend. And then I have 4 amazing children, Marco Jr., Maximo, Matteo, and Mila in the back that have health, that we decided to homeschool. And by the way, we've been running a very covert, please don't tell the FDA, own clinical trial. So if you guys are wondering what it's like to be plant-based since birth, you could interview our kids when this is over. They're all 100% plant-based since birth. And very much environmentalist. Marco, are you? Yes? Okay. So, you think of someone saying, find what you love, and then you'll never work a day in your life. But that assumes that work is something negative. Right? So I would rather give you a little bit, that advice, but a little bit differently. And it would be, when you find what you love, the work becomes fun. But more importantly, it becomes meaningful. And that will give you the strength to go the distance, to remain consistent over time. Because God only knows you're going to be thrown a lot of curveballs. But when the work you're doing is important to you and it matters, nothing can get in your way. And there's a lot that I can go into on this matter because I've been building businesses since the age of 22. I opened my first, so when I graduated college, I decided that I would prevent disease by helping people exercise. So I opened my first gym at the age of 22. Then I grew that business, and then eventually I started 22 Days Nutrition, which is a platform that empowers people through tools and resources on how to live healthier lives. And then obviously I'm writing my books. And so I could share a lot about finding your passion so that the work becomes meaningful. But I live by one super simple concept. And I wanted to share it with you. And it's Kaizen. And it's the Japanese word for continuous self-improvement. Every single day is an opportunity to live the life that you truly want to live and to create the world that we want to live in. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
We're going to have a quick Q&A, Marco, because I know many of you, I'm sure, have lots of great questions.
You don't want me to take this off? All right. I think you guys figured it out by now. I could talk forever. So you don't have to pull me back on the stage.
I'm sure we have plenty of questions, and I'm curious, I'll kick it off and then get ready. So I'm turning off over to you all. But is there a difference between plant-based and vegan?
Yes.
Okay. Can you just sort of share that a little bit?
So simply said, nachos and cheese and waffles can be vegan, but they're not necessarily plant-based.
Okay, yes.
So what we're encouraging people to do is, and I think here lies the problem, is that for many years, people that decided to go vegan did so for environmental reasons or for the cruelty to animals, right? To prevent not be a part of that.
Right.
And then what happened is that there was no regard for human health. It was just about what they were doing for either the environment or for the animals, right? And they started to consume diets that were not necessarily healthy.
Because Oreos can technically be vegan.
Oreos are vegan.
They are vegan, okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So what I did from the very beginning is that I focused, by the way, I jumped into this, and there's no shame in being 100% honest and transparent, as I have been and always will be. I did it for my own health.
Sure.
I did not want what I saw. By the way, we're not living longer. We're not. We're dying longer. My grandmother had phenomenal genes. My grandmother died at 87, 88 years of age. She was in a bed for the last 10 years of her life because she had a stroke that paralyzed her. Right? I knew that if I kept the same pattern that my family had kept, that I would wind up in the same place. And I wanted to prevent that, right? So I take no medications. I don't have hypertension. I don't have high cholesterol. The first time in our entire family lineage that this is happening, right? So when I went into this, and I go back so that I allow you to see why I decided from day one to focus on health.
Right.
And it was in that focus, in that pursuit of health, that I realized that it was all about plants, but about a truly plant-based diet, not about vegan for the word vegan.
Right.
And I knew very early on, I think there's a misconception between being vegan and being healthy or being, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Being ethical or being conscious and having to give up something. You don't have to give, there's no trade-off. There's no like, I'm gonna go vegan for the animals, but I'm gonna suffer.
Right.
I think that when we do something that's great for us, we're doing something that's also great for the animals. And it also happens to be that it's also great for the planet. So a plant-based diet is as unprocessed as possible. Pick foods with single ingredients. Broccoli, does anyone know the ingredient in broccoli?
Broccoli?
Wonderful, that's plant-based.
I love it. That's awesome. We could talk
Yeah,
forever.
I feel that.
Yeah, we will, right? But I want to turn it over to you all, and I'd love to get some questions from the audience. So who do we have? Yes, ma'am. Can we get one of our mics? Thank you so much. If you could just introduce yourself, please.
Sure. Hi, I'm Anna Lindquist. I'm from Eckerd College in Florida.
Anna?
Hi.
Hi.
I was wondering about the price differences. So there are a lot of barriers to entry. So many people may think that they can't really get into the vegan or plant-based diet because of price or cost limitations. So what can you talk about the price differences between eating meat, going vegan, and plant-based?
I mean, when you have McDonald's dollar menu,
Yeah,
it's kind of
yeah, right.
and kale.
That's a
bushel of
wonderful.
kale is $3.
Thank you.
So.
Thank you for that question. Now, it's typically, I would say, it's those guys on Capitol Hill, the lobbyists. They're trying to sway, but the reality is there's this massive misconception that plants are more expensive than meats. I mean, it's like let's forget about what you've heard and what you've read. Let's really distill it down to what it actually is.
Right.
When you go to the supermarket, what costs most money? I mean, by the way, I don't have a butler that goes and buys my food for me. I go to Whole Foods.
Right.
I'm probably one of their best customers. Are we, boys? How many times do we go to Whole Foods a week? Right?
He's like,
I know that not everyone can afford to go to Whole Foods, but there happens to be one near my house. But I am of the thought that you either invest in your health or you wind up paying for it in medicine.
Absolutely.
You either pay the farmer or you pay the pharmacist. It's really simple. So when someone says to me, oh, it's too expensive, I say, you know what? The truth is that people love to hear good things about their bad habits. You know what that means, right? Oh, you can't afford it. Oh, yeah, you know what? I would go vegan, but I just can't afford it. It's too hard. I need a chef. Beyonce has a chef. I'm not, I don't have, if I had Beyonce's chef, if I had her resources, truth is, if you had her resources, you'd be rolling around in Godiva.
Right.
You would not be rolling around in alfalfa sprouts, okay? So the reality is that you can go one way or the other with that, right? So it's about empowering yourself. Don't be the victim, right? Don't be reactive. Let's be proactive. You can invest in good food, right? That's good for you, bless you. Or you can wind up suffering the consequences. So at the end of the day, does organic kale cost more than a hamburger at McDonald's? Probably so. Probably so. That might be a valid argument. Who the hell wants to eat something from a $1 menu at McDonald's?
Hopefully.
How many people have cooked in this room? Okay, I love that. How many of you could tell me that you've ever made something for $1 in your home that had a burger, fries, and something to drink? Who spent $1 to make something? Please, I'm bringing you home with me, because my bills are going to go down. Who is that? Is someone in here? Has someone ever made something for $1? Bless you. No, right? So imagine, they didn't make it for $1. Yep. They made it somewhere, shipped it all the way to McDonald's, paid someone to heat it up for you, wrap it up in all that stuff that isn't biodegradable, that isn't compostable, and then give it to you. So packaging, transportation, and labor, $1. Why the hell would you want to eat that? Yeah. And then we wonder why we're suffering from so much heart disease, why it's $1 billion business a day. Like, there's nothing to wonder. Wow. I'm sorry, I get passionate because it's the truth. It's like, a food should not cost $1.
It shouldn't cost $1.
I'm sorry.
It shouldn't.
By the way, the same people that are telling me that food costs too much money are the same people that have the latest iPhone. How many people have an iPhone in this room? Raise your hands.
Or at least the Android.
Please, please, please. Like, seriously.
We have,
yeah, come on.
Cost prohibitive.
Right?
Give me 2 more. Yes, ma'am.
It's doable. It's doable.
Hi.
We can do it.
My name is Rakia Howard from North Carolina Central
Hi, Rakia.
University.
Hi.
How do we go about educating low socioeconomic communities about plant-based diets when food insecurity is such a huge issue? Like, if you go down the street from our school, we have Food Lion, and the fruit, like the healthier options, they're spoiled, and people don't want to buy it. And Whole Foods is like 30 minutes other side of Durham.
I love that.
That's a good You mentioned culture.
I love that. Yes.
And I feel like with a lot of people that it's culture, like you said, was hereditary. Like, we eat what our grandmother fed us and so no, it's not like, it doesn't run in the family, but how do you change
By the way, so I'm glad that you asked that question and that the both of us are standing up here, right? So an African American and a Latino, right? A Cuban, right, is sitting up here in GW. Who would have thought, right? Who is first generation.
Amen.
How the hell did I get in here? Frank, I don't know. You might get in trouble after this one, buddy. You might lose your status here. The reality is, my grandmother had a 2nd grade education, right? My mom didn't graduate from high school because she had me when she was 19 and my brother when she was 17. It's up to us to educate ourselves. But then more importantly, when we do, we have to share it with our communities. We have to share it with our brothers and sisters. Today, I'm in the process of filming a documentary called The Greenprint, where we go into the disenfranchised, the forgotten neighborhoods to teach people how to be able to do this on their own. Absolutely. Because we can grow our own food. It wasn't that long ago when people were actually growing their own food. It really wasn't that long ago. Absolutely. Right? When we were growing food and we weren't stockpiling bags of 5-pound potato chips in our cupboard, where we actually had food that we could eat in our backyard. And I think we need to go back to that. The solution is going to be that. That is sustainable, right? And people need to, I think we need to get back to understanding where our food is coming from and what it's doing to us and what it also does to the environment, because then and only then are you empowered enough to understand the impact that your daily choices can have on the planet. So it's going to take a little bit of time, but we're working on it. And I think the more we know, the more we can share, and the more we actually do. Because something funny happens in the world. People don't learn so much from what you talk about. But what you do. You know, people say to me, how do you get your kids to eat that way? We make food, we put it on the table.
And that's what they eat.
I'm not outside smoking a cigarette and then telling my kids, you know, don't ever do this. It's the worst thing in the world you could do. It's like, right? So it's about what we are doing. It's about every single day understanding that you have the power. Every single one of you has the power to change the world. You know what's crazy is that, I'm going to get a little personal here because I feel like we're such a, this room has awesome energy, by the way. It's got such a great vibe in here. I love it. It feels like you're in, an auditorium, but it doesn't. It feels like it's much more intimate. when I published my second book, that Raymond had lost all that weight, I remember a conversation that I had with my mom. And she says to me, "You're doing what? You're switching from biology, pre-med, to exercise physiology, and you're going to become a trainer? From a doctor to a trainer, straight A student, paying my own way through college. You're out of your mind." And I share that with you because fast forward, however many years later, the foreword to my second book was written by Dr. Dean Ornish, the same guy that proved we can reverse heart disease with a plant-based diet.
Story.
Right? So if that isn't powerful enough, if that isn't empowering enough for you to know that you have the potential within you to change not only your life and the life of all those around you, but also to impact the planet in such a profound way that the planet becomes the place that you truly want to live in.
I don't know about anyone else, but who's going to at least try 22-day challenge? Yeah. Can we get a round of applause for Marco Borges,
Thank you.
please?
Thank you. Okay, so one last thing.
Right? Want to talk about your books or something?
No, we don't need to talk about the books, but one last thing is that I promised that I would introduce my kids. So Marco Jr., would you come up here with me, please? Mateo, Maximo, Mila, can you come up here, Mila?
Hi,
So
boys.
this is Marco Jr., this is Maximo, and this is Mateo. Guys, turn around. You have to turn around and say hi.
And Mila, his daughter is...
And Mila is sitting in the back. She's too shy. She's way too shy. But these are my boys. Maximo is 6, Mateo is 9, and Marco is 11. They're wonderful kids. Like I said, they're homeschooled. They're going to be professional tennis players when they grow up. Aside from also being plant-based advocates, they're trying to figure out how they're going to juggle both. But they're happy to be here. Thank you all for your time. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for everything.
We'll have Frank come back up.
Oh, Marco wants me to share that not only did my family my immediate family go 100% plant-based, my mom is now 100% plant-based, has been for about 7 years. My brother and my sister, my 2 siblings, 100% plant-based. So we have been able to affect and influence the lives of those that we care most about.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Okay.